The big ship from Earth came down slow and steady. Professor Crow stood in the observation room with his team and watched as the humans walked out onto the landing platform. He had read the reports about these strange creatures. He knew they came from a world called Earth, a place that was dangerous and harsh. But reading about them was not the same as seeing them. The humans looked different from what he had expected. They were not weak. They were not fragile. But they were not powerful like the soldiers from other planets either. They were just different. Their skin was soft and needed protection from the sun. Their bodies were not covered in the hard shells that most species had. They looked almost like they could break if you pushed them too hard. Chris Matthews was the leader of the human group. He was tall and moved with the confidence of someone who had fought many battles. When he shook hands with the alien officials, his grip was strong. His eyes were clear and calm. Krell found himself watching Chris more than the others. There was something about this human that made Krell want to understand what made his kind special. The first day went well. The humans were shown to their quarters. They were given food that would not make them sick. They were told the rules of the academy. The alien teachers explained that they wanted to learn about human culture and human science. The humans said they wanted to learn the same things about the aliens. But on the second day, something strange happened. Krell was in the observation room when he saw the humans go to the bathing area. On his world, bathing was a private activity. You covered your body. You washed quickly. You left. But the humans did not do this. They stayed in the water for long periods of time. And they did not cover their bodies. Worse than this, they seemed to show their bodies to each other on purpose. Krell saw Chris Matthews stand in the middle of the bathing area with no clothes on his body. The other humans looked at him. Chris pointed to a long line on his chest that went from his shoulder down to his ribs. The line was thick and wide and ugly. It was a scar. Krell felt sick. On his world, scars were something that happened to weak creatures. They meant you had been hurt. They meant you had failed to protect yourself. Scars were shameful. You did everything you could to hide them or remove them. But Chris was not hiding his scar. Chris was showing it to everyone. And the worst part was that the other humans were smiling. They were laughing. They were clapping their hands in a way that showed they were happy. It was like Chris had done something good by showing them the ugly line on his body. Emma Chum came and stood next to Krell in the observation room. She was one of the younger humans. She had a scar on her shoulder that was white and thin. It looked like a line drawn with chalk. "You look upset," Emma said. She smiled at him. "Do you want to know how I got this?" Krell did not want to know, but he also wanted to understand. This was his job. He was supposed to learn about the humans and how they thought. "Yes," Krell said. "I want to understand." Emma pointed to her scar. "I was working at a mining station when something went wrong. A plasma cutter came too close to my shoulder. It burned me. I was in pain for a long time. But I did not give up. I learned how to fix the machine so it would not happen to anyone else. Now, when I look at this scar, I remember that I was strong enough to survive and smart enough to fix the problem." Krell did not understand this at all. The burn had caused Emma pain. The burn had marked her body forever. Why was this something to be proud of? Ryan Wallace came into the observation room. He was another human. He had many scars. There was one on his arm. There was one on his leg. There was one on his face that pulled at the skin around his eye. "Emma is right," Ryan said. "On Earth, scars mean something. They mean you lived through something hard. They mean you are tough." Krell felt confused. "But you could have removed them. You have the technology. You could make your skin perfect again." Chris had come in now, too. He was dressed, but his clothes did not hide the scar on his chest. The scar was so big that it was visible even through the cloth. "That is not what we do," Chris said. On Earth, we learn from our mistakes. When you get a scar, you remember what caused it. You remember how to be careful next time. You remember that you survived something dangerous. These scars are important to us. Dr. Zephyrin came into the room. She was the main doctor for the alien team. She was the head of the people who were supposed to learn about the humans. She looked at the scars on the humans and made a sound that showed she was worried. This is not normal behavior, Dr. Zephyrin said. This is not healthy. You are treating injury like it is something to celebrate. This is wrong. Kate Morrison was with the humans. She was older than Emma and Ryan. She had less hair on her head, which showed that she had lived many years. When she spoke, everyone listened. It is not wrong, Kate said. Her voice was calm but very clear. On Earth, we do not have easy lives. When we are born, the world tries to kill us. The weather is extreme. The animals are dangerous. Disease is common. We survive because we are strong and clever. When we get a scar, it means we faced something that wanted to kill us. And we won. That is worth celebrating. Krell thought about his own world. His world was safe. Nothing tried to kill you. The weather was always good. There were no dangerous animals. Your body healed perfectly in just a few days. There was nothing to fight against. There was nothing to survive. For the first time, Krell wondered if his world had made his people weak in some way. They had never needed to be strong because nothing had ever made them strong. I want to understand this better, Krell said. I want to learn why you keep your scars instead of removing them. Chris smiled. We will teach you. You will see. By the end of this program, you will understand what scars really mean. Krell was not sure he wanted to understand, but he knew it was his job to try. He left the observation room and went to his office. He sat in the dark and thought about scars. He thought about survival. He thought about what it meant to come from a world where pain was common and danger was real. He realized that he knew very little about what it meant to be human. He had much to learn. 2 weeks passed, and Krell became more confused each day. The humans did not act like they were ashamed of their scars. They acted like their scars were valuable. They talked about them openly. They showed them to each other without hesitation. Sometimes, they even laughed about the pain they had felt when they got the scars. Krell watched everything they did. He made notes. He recorded their words. He studied their faces when they talked about their injuries. And nothing made sense to him. Michelle Torres was an engineer. She worked with machines and tools. One day, she gave a talk to the alien teachers about her work. She stood in front of them with her hands held up. Her hands were covered with scars. Some scars were thin lines. Some scars were thick and raised up from her skin. Some scars were pale and old. Some scars were still pink and new. Every scar on my hands is a lesson, Michelle said. This one is from the time I did not test the machine properly. It burned me. But I learned to always test before I use something new. This one is from when I cut myself with a sharp tool. I learned to be more careful. This one is from when an experiment went wrong. It exploded. I learned how to calculate the right amount of chemicals to use. She held up her hands and turned them so everyone could see all the scars. I have learned more from these scars than I have learned from any teacher. Each one is a mistake that made me smarter and better at my job. The alien teachers clapped their hands. This was what confused Krell the most. They were celebrating the fact that she had been hurt. They were happy because she had made mistakes. On Krell's world, mistakes were shameful. If you made a mistake, you tried to forget it. You worked very hard to never make the same mistake again. But you did not talk about the mistake. You did not show it to people. You certainly did not celebrate it. Dr. Zephyrin was very upset by Michelle's presentation. She called a private meeting with Krell after the talk was over. "The entire human species is broken," Dr. Zephyrin said. "They all suffer from the same mental problem. They glorify pain. They celebrate injury. They think that getting hurt means they are smart. This is not normal thinking. This is not healthy thinking. I think the humans may be too dangerous for us to work with." Krell was starting to think that maybe Dr. Zephyrin was wrong, but he could not say this out loud. He was the head of the team. If he said that Dr. Zephyrin was wrong, then the other doctors would not respect her. And if the other doctors did not respect her, then the team would fall apart. "We need more information before we make a decision," Krell said. "We should talk to the humans more. We should try to understand why they think this way." Kate Morrison asked to meet with Krell alone. They sat in a small room with no windows. Kate looked directly at Krell and spoke in a very serious voice. "You think we are broken," Kate said. This was not a question. It was a fact. "I do not know what you are," Krell said honestly. "I do not understand your thinking." Kate took a deep breath. "Let me explain something to you. Earth is not like your world. Earth is not safe. Earth is not easy. On Earth, the weather can kill you. The animals can kill you. The diseases can kill you. Even other humans can kill you if you are not careful. When I was a child, I had to learn how to survive. My parents taught me. My teachers taught me. Everyone who lived long enough to grow up learned the same thing. You have to fight to stay alive." She held up her arms and pushed up her sleeves. There were many scars on her arms. They were different colors and different shapes. Some were big. Some were tiny. "These scars are not from weakness," Kate said. "These scars are from living. This one is from a hunting accident. I survived. This one is from a time I was a soldier and my enemy cut me with a knife. I survived. This one is from climbing a mountain because I wanted to reach the top and prove I was strong enough. Every single scar means I faced something dangerous and I did not let it destroy me. That is not weakness. That is strength. That is what humans call courage." Krell listened to every word. He tried to understand, but his brain worked differently than the human brain. He had never had to fight for his life. He had never been hungry. He had never been cold. He had never been afraid that something would kill him. "On your world," Kate continued, "everything is safe. Nothing hurts you. You heal perfectly. You probably think that is the best way to live. But it makes your people soft. You do not know what it means to push yourself to survive. You do not know what it means to be strong when everything around you is trying to break you." These words made Krell feel strange. He felt something that he had never felt before. He felt that maybe Kate was right. Maybe his world had made his people weak. "If what you say is true," Krell said slowly, "then scars are proof that you survived a dangerous world. They are proof of strength, not weakness." "Yes," Kate said. "Now, you are starting to understand." But the rest of the alien team was not understanding. More of the alien teachers started to agree with Dr. Zephyrin. They began to think that humans were too strange. They began to think that humans could not be trusted. They began to think that humanity should not be allowed to join the peaceful group of planets. Krell read the reports that came in every day. Each report said something bad about the humans. Each report said that the humans were dangerous. Each report said that scars showed that humans were violent and brutal. Krell knew that this was wrong, but he did not know how to prove it. Then something happened that changed everything. The humans asked permission to do combat training. The alien teachers decided to watch them. Krell thought this would be their chance to see the humans for what they truly were. He thought the training would show that humans were violent creatures who loved to fight. But Krell did not understand humans yet. He did not understand how training worked. He did not understand why Alex Henderson, the human instructor, would show his scars to the young soldiers and tell them about every mistake he had made. And that was where the real lesson would begin. The training ground was outside the main building. It was a large open space where humans could run and fight without hitting anything valuable. The alien teachers arrived early and stood behind a protective barrier. They were ready to see the violent side of humanity that they believed existed. Alex Henderson was the training instructor. He had been a soldier for many years. His body was strong and hard. His face showed that he had seen many difficult things. When he turned to speak to the young human soldiers, his voice was calm but very strong. "Today, we are going to talk about the most important lesson," Alex said. "The lesson is not how to be perfect. The lesson is how to learn from your failures." He removed his shirt. The young soldiers looked at his body. It was covered with scars. There were many of them. Some were thick and white and old. Some were thin and pink and newer. There were scars on his chest. There were scars on his arms. There were scars on his legs. His body told the story of a life spent fighting and surviving. Krell felt Dr. Zephyrin move beside him. She was making the sound that meant she was upset. "This is exactly what we feared," Dr. Zephyrin said quietly. "He is showing off the violence that has marked his body. He's making the other humans admire his injuries. This is training in brutality." But Krell was not sure. He kept watching. Alex pointed to a long scar on his forearm. "This scar is from my 3rd year as a soldier. I was fighting against an enemy who was stronger than me. I used this move to defend myself. But I made a mistake. I left my arm exposed. My enemy's weapon cut me deep. I almost bled to death." He paused and let the young soldiers look at the scar. "I could have given up after this," Alex continued. "I could have decided that fighting was too dangerous. I could have quit. But I did not. Instead, I changed my technique. I practiced for months. I made this move stronger. I made myself better. And I never made that mistake again." Alex moved to another scar. This one was on his chest. It was a deep line that went from his shoulder down to his ribs. It looked very painful. "This scar is from when I was overconfident. I thought I was too good to be hurt. I was fighting and I took a risk that I should not have taken. My enemy struck me here. The weapon cut deep. I almost died. But my brothers and sisters in the military helped me. They got me to a doctor. I lived." He touched the scar gently. "This scar taught me humility. It taught me that I am not invincible. It taught me that the world is dangerous, and I need to respect that danger. Every time I look at this scar, I remember that lesson. And because I remember, I am still alive." The young human soldiers were listening very carefully. They were not smiling. They were not happy. They were serious. They understood that Alex was telling them something that mattered. They understood that these scars were not just marks on his skin. They were lessons written in his body. Alex spent the next 2 hours showing every major scar on his body. For each scar, he told a story. He explained what mistake he had made. He explained what he had learned. He showed how that learning had made him a better fighter and a better human. "A scar is not the end of the story," Alex said finally. "A scar is a page in the story. It is a chapter where you faced something difficult and you survived. It is a chapter where you learned something important. It is a chapter where you became stronger." He put his shirt back on. "You will all get scars," Alex said to the young soldiers. "Some of you will get them from fighting. Some of you will get them from accidents. Some of you will get them from taking risks. The question is not whether you will get scars. The question is whether you will learn from them. The question is whether you will use your scars to make yourself better, or whether you will use your scars to make yourself afraid." Krell felt something change inside his thinking. He had been wrong. The humans were not glorifying violence. The humans were learning from pain. The humans were taking their worst moments and turning them into wisdom. Ryan Wallace was standing next to him. Ryan smiled when he saw Krell's expression change. "Now you see," Ryan said, "it is not about being brutal. It is about being brave enough to learn from your failures. Every human adult has scars. Not all of them are on the outside. Some are on the inside. But we all have them. And we all use them to teach others." When the training session ended, the young soldiers walked past Krell. They looked up at him with respect. They understood that they had just learned something important. They understood that Alex had given them the gift of his pain. He had turned his suffering into knowledge. And now they would carry that knowledge with them. Krell walked back slowly with the other alien teachers. He could hear Dr. Zephyrin and the others talking. They were confused. They had expected to see violence. Instead, they had seen teaching. They had expected to see cruelty. Instead, they had seen care. That night, Krell sat alone in his office. He wrote a message to the Galactic Education Council. He said that the humans were not what they had feared. He said that humans had a way of thinking that was different from all the other species. He said that humans did not run away from pain. They ran toward it. They looked it in the face. They learned from it. And they became stronger. He wrote that he did not fully understand this yet, but he thought that maybe humans had discovered something important. He thought that maybe a species that could survive a dangerous world and turn that survival into strength and wisdom was not broken. It was evolved. It was exactly what a species should be. He sent the message and waited for the response. He knew that the Galactic Education Council would not believe him. Not yet, but he had seen the truth with his own eyes. The truth was that humanity's scars were not marks of failure. They were marks of triumph. After the training session, the alien teachers began to talk to each other. Some of them were still unsure. Some of them were starting to believe that humans were not as bad as they had thought. And some of them had completely changed their minds. Dr. Zephyrin was one of the ones who changed her mind. She came to Krell's office 3 days after the training. "I have been wrong," Dr. Zephyrin said. There was pain in her voice. She did not like being wrong. The humans do not celebrate violence. They celebrate survival. They take their pain and they turn it into knowledge. I have never seen a species do this before. It is remarkable. Krell felt relieved. If Dr. Zephyrin agreed with him, then the other alien teachers would listen. They would begin to understand. Professor Krell decided to have a formal presentation. He asked the human leaders to speak to all the alien teachers. He wanted them to explain their culture directly. He wanted there to be no more misunderstanding. Chris Matthews spoke first. He talked about Earth and what it was like to live on a world where danger was common. He talked about learning to be strong from childhood. He talked about how scars were proof that you had survived. On Earth, Chris said, we have a saying. It is better to be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war. This means that we would rather be strong and never need to fight than be weak and get hurt anyway. We work hard to be strong. And when we get hurt, we wear the scar as proof that we were strong enough to survive. Michelle Torres talked about her work. She explained how she had learned engineering through trial and error. She showed her scarred hands and talked about every lesson that was written in her skin. I am a better engineer because of my mistakes, Michelle said. I am more careful. I am more creative. I am more thoughtful about my work. The pain I felt when I got these scars made me a better person and a better worker. Emma Chung talked about mining. She explained how mining was dangerous work. She explained how people died in mining accidents. She explained how the ones who survived had to be smart and strong. When I look at my scar, Emma said, pointing to the white line on her shoulder, I remember the moment I almost died. I remember how close I came to never seeing my family again. That memory makes me careful. That memory makes me humble. That memory makes me work harder to keep myself and others safe. Ryan Wallace talked about communication. He said that humans had to talk about their pain. They had to share their stories. They had to learn from each other's mistakes. We do not keep our pain secret, Ryan said. We talk about it. We share it. We teach with it. This is what makes us strong. When one human survives something difficult, all humans learn from it. When one human gets a scar, everyone can read that scar and understand what that human learned. Kate Morrison gave the main talk. She stood in front of all the alien teachers and spoke with power and clarity. You come from worlds where nothing hurts you, Kate said. You have never been hungry. You have never been cold. You have never been afraid that something would kill you. You think that this makes you advanced. You think that this makes you superior. But you are wrong. The alien teachers made sounds of surprise. They were not used to being told they were wrong. On Earth, Kate continued, we learned to survive. We learned to be smart. We learned to be brave. We learned to work together. We learned to help each other. We learned to turn pain into wisdom. This is not weakness. This is the most powerful thing a species can learn. She held up her arms and showed all of her scars. These scars are my education. These scars are my strength. These scars are my proof that I did not give up when I could have. They are my proof that I kept fighting. They are my proof that I am alive. Kate looked directly at Krell. Your species heals perfectly. Nothing ever marks you. Nothing ever teaches you through pain. You have never learned what it means to survive. You have never learned what it means to be truly strong. And I feel sorry for you. Because strength without pain is not really strength. It is just luck. The alien teachers were very quiet. They were processing what Kate had said. That night, Emma Chen and Michelle Torres taught a class to the alien students. They taught them meditation. They taught them how to manage pain. They taught them how to use pain as a teacher instead of an enemy. When you feel pain, Emma said, do not run away from it. Do not hide from it. Look at it. Study it. Ask it what it is trying to teach you. Pain is trying to help you. Pain is trying to make you better. This was a strange idea for the young alien students. They had never thought about pain as something that could help them. But they tried the meditation, and some of them said that it was interesting. On the final day of the formal exchange, Kate Morrison gave a speech to all the aliens at the dinner table. She spoke about human history. She spoke about all the great humans who had survived terrible things and gone on to change the world. Every great achievement in human history came from someone who had been hurt, Kate said. Every great invention came from someone who had failed many times. Every great leader came from someone who had suffered. This is not a coincidence. This is how humans become great. We suffer. We learn. We grow. We become stronger. She raised her cup of water in a toast. I want to thank you for asking us to come here. I want to thank you for trying to understand us. You did not understand us at first. You thought we were broken. You thought we were violent. You thought we were sick. But you kept trying to learn. That is the most important thing. That is what makes a species worth talking to. Not your perfect technology. Not your perfect bodies. But your willingness to learn even when something does not make sense. All the aliens raised their cups and drank the water. And something had changed. Something in how they saw humans. Something in how they understood what it meant to be strong. The formal study program lasted 3 months. During this time, the alien teachers learned more than they had learned in many years. They learned about human pain. They learned about human survival. They learned about human strength. Most importantly, They learned that there were many different ways to be advanced and powerful. Professor Krull spent every day with the humans. He watched how they lived. He watched how they talked to each other. He watched how they showed their scars without shame. He watched how they treated each other with respect because they knew what each other had survived. One day, Krell sat with Chris Matthews in the gardens outside the Academy building. The sun was warm. The plants were growing. It was a peaceful moment. "You have changed," Chris said. "When we first arrived, you looked at us like we were strange animals. Now you look at us like we are something worth understanding." "I have changed," Krell agreed. "I did not know what strength was. I thought strength meant being invulnerable. I thought strength meant never getting hurt. I thought strength meant being perfect. But I was wrong." Chris nodded. "On Earth, we have learned that strength comes from being knocked down and getting back up. Strength comes from making mistakes and learning from them. Strength comes from facing your fear and doing it anyway. Your people have never had to develop this kind of strength. But maybe now you will." Krell looked at Chris. "Will you teach us? Will you teach all the aliens in the galaxy what it means to be strong like a human is strong?" Chris smiled. "That is why we came. That is why we will keep coming. We want the galaxy to understand what we have learned. We want everyone to know that pain is not the end of the story. Pain is the beginning of strength." When the study program ended, the human delegation prepared to leave. They packed their ships. They said goodbye to all the alien teachers. There were moments when both humans and aliens felt sadness that they had to part. On the final day, Krell met with Chris one more time. They stood on the landing platform and watched the ships being loaded. "I am going to write a full report to the Galactic Education Council," Krell said. "I am going to tell them everything I have learned. I am going to recommend that humans be accepted as full members of the galactic community. I'm going to recommend that human culture be studied and respected. I am going to recommend that humans be given a place of honor among all the species." Chris shook his head slightly. "You do not have to honor us for being strong. Strength is not special. Every species could be strong if they want it to be. The question is whether they are willing to pay the price. The question is whether they are willing to face pain and use it to grow." "You are right," Krell said. "But your kind has done something that no other species has done. You have survived a deadly world. You have thrived on a deadly world. You have turned that world into your strength. That is worthy of respect." Chris extended his arm in the human way of saying goodbye. Krell extended his appendage in the same way. They held each other for a moment. And then Chris turned and walked toward the ship. Krell watched the human delegation board their transport. He watched the ship power up its engines. He watched it lift off the ground and climb toward the sky. The ship disappeared among the stars. And Krell was alone on the landing platform. He went back to his office. He spent the next week writing his full report to the Galactic Education Council. He wrote about how humans came from a deadly world. He wrote about how humans had developed a culture where pain was respected. He wrote about how humans turned their suffering into wisdom. He wrote about how humans were the most resilient species he had ever met. The Galactic Education Council read his report. They discussed it for many hours. Some of them were skeptical. Some of them wanted more proof. But in the end, they made a decision. They decided to accept humanity as a full member of the galactic community. More than that, they created a new position. They asked Krell to be the ambassador of human understanding. His job would be to teach other species about human culture. His job would be to help aliens understand what made humans special. Krell accepted the position. He knew it'd be difficult work. He knew that many aliens would not believe him. But he had seen the truth with his own eyes. He had felt the truth in his heart. He knew that humans were not broken. They were evolved. They were exactly what a species should be when it comes from a deadly world. Over the next years, Krell gave many talks about human culture. He showed images of human scars. He told stories about human survival. He explained how pain had made humans strong. Many aliens began to understand. Many aliens began to respect humanity. The Voxter learned how to use pain as a teaching tool. The Zealoth learned how to value struggle and survival. Other species began to study human history and human culture. They began to understand that there were many different ways to be advanced. Having perfect bodies was not the same as having perfect minds. Being invulnerable was not the same as being wise. Humans were given important positions in the galactic community. They were put in charge of exploration. They were put in charge of dealing with dangerous situations. They were put in charge of teaching other species how to be brave. Years after the first exchange program, Krell received a message from Chris Matthews. Chris had become the head of all human ambassadors to the alien species. The message said simply, "Thank you for being willing to learn. Thank you for being willing to change your mind. That is the first step to real strength." Krell kept the message in his office. He read it often. Every time he read it, he remembered standing in the observation room and watching humans show their scars. He remembered thinking that they were broken. He remembered thinking that they were sick. He had been so very wrong. The truth was that humans were the strongest species in the galaxy. Not because they had the best weapons. Not because they had the most advanced technology. But because they had learned how to face pain and survive it. They had learned how to take their worst moments and turn them into strength. They had learned that scars were not marks of failure. Scars were proof that you had faced death, and said no dot in every human scar was written a story of defiance. In every human scar was written proof of survival. And in those scars, the galaxy had finally found what true strength really meant.